All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us in this presentation, looking at transportation needs of rural and medically underserved communities in Southwestern PA. My name's Molly Jenkins, and myself and one of our MSW students, soon to be graduating students, Courtney, will be doing this presentation today.
Hi, my name's Courtney. I am, as Molly said, an MSW student who'll be graduating in 1 month and 5 days, but who's counting? I'm also a participant in the HRSA grant program. I'm a graduate assistant at the university. I have lived in Westmoreland County for close to 2 decades, and I'm very vested in this community and really happy to be part of this project.
All right, and I'm the HRSA program coordinator at CalU. So I was hired a little over 2 years ago to manage the HRSA BWEP program and now the HRSA OWEP program. And we work with neighboring universities as well as HRSA to kind of offer different trainings, programs to students. So just to give you a little background information on CalU, we're part of the state system of higher education. We have a student population of approximately 8,000. We're located in California, Pennsylvania, small rural community about 35 miles from Pittsburgh and part of the Mon Valley. Our primary area of focus is Fayette, Greene, Washington, and Westmoreland counties, as well as Allegheny County, where Pittsburgh is located. This area is really where most of our students complete their field experience for both our MSW and Counselor Ed programs. And throughout this area of focus, there are significant medically underserved populations. All of Fayette County is medically underserved, all of Greene County, parts of Westmoreland, parts of Washington, as well as parts of Allegheny surrounding and inside the city of Pittsburgh. All right, and here's a picture of our campus. This is our new Vulcan logo, and we're located on the river. One of my favorite faculty members says we're a riverside community. So, in the fall of 2017, the graduate social work and counselor ed departments, and counselor ed consists of clinical mental health counseling and school counseling, were awarded a $1.9 million HRSA Behavioral Health Workforce Education and Training Program grant. The goal of this program is to increase the workforce in rural and medically underserved communities, which, like I said, is much of what surrounds our university. Through this program, we provide 30 graduate students per year with a $10,000 stipend while they complete their clinical field work in these rural and medically underserved areas. In addition, we provide interdisciplinary training opportunities, monthly meetings, community trainings on campus. It really varies each semester what we're able to provide. And we also send our students to conferences and trainings throughout the area. And our mission is to collaboratively educate, train, and provide services that will benefit the health and health equity of the underserved and vulnerable individuals in our community by producing quality behavioral health professionals for the region's workforce. So I was initially hired as the program coordinator for this HRSA BWEP grant. And part of this grant is an advisory committee. Our committee consists of about 35 individuals right now from throughout our area of focus. It includes clinicians, school counselors, alumni, members of our religious community, university leaders, students, site supervisors, anyone that's kind of part of our community can be on our advisory committee. They meet twice per year, and at these meetings, we discuss the status of the program and the needs of the community. So what knowledge do our students need before entering the workplace? What's changing in our community? Where do they need more training? How can we better prepare the students? If you're an agency or a school, what trainings can we provide? What could we do for your organization? And how can the university just better meet the behavioral health needs of the community? And feedback from this advisory committee shapes the trainings that are offered to our students, to our members of the community, things that we address in classes, class offerings even, are really influenced by this advisory committee and what they're saying we need right now in the community. So, something that continuously comes up in our advisory committee is transportation barriers in our area of focus. And that's something that we're going to talk a little bit more about today. But one aspect of the training program for our HRSA BWET grant recipients is a year-long project. So for this past school year, students were broken into interdisciplinary teams based on the location where they're completing their clinical fieldwork and their interests. Usually, students work on these projects throughout the school year, and then they present their findings at our annual research conference on campus, Strike a Spark. This year, we're doing that virtually with our students because we are not on campus at the moment. So students are required to meet monthly with their team in person or virtually. They remain in contact with me regarding meetings and progress, and they each complete and present a portion of their project. Students are invited to further explore their interests and experiences through this project, and they have a great deal of freedom in deciding the project design. We also want students to bring their expertise and their learning into the project. So from a social work perspective, from a school counseling perspective, from a clinical perspective, what are your thoughts and ideas, and how would you approach this problem? So based kind of our future plans a little bit, our students, we were originally going to roll this kind of into an advocacy project for summer, but as of right now, we're not going to be on campus this summer. So that plan's going to have to change a little bit. So based on that feedback from the advisory committee, these are the 6 topics our groups are addressing this year. Transportation in Fayette, Greene, Washington, and Westmoreland counties. Food insecurity in California, Pennsylvania, where we're located, because we have one food pantry that recently closed. And then graduate student health insurance, because that's a topic that often comes up with our students, access to affordable health insurance while they're in school. All right, so I'm going to turn it over to Courtney, who is one of our students completing one of these projects.
All right. So Molly's going to be helping me with getting through the slides here. So if you don't mind, go ahead and clicking on the next slide there. So like I said earlier, you know, I've been very vested in this community since about 2014. I've been working with children with autism and emotional support needs. I transitioned into working with adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And then most recently, until about 2 weeks ago, actually, I was interning at the Westmoreland Hospital, working with hospital patients, coordinating discharges from the hospital. And so I have seen firsthand the effects of the lack of transportation options within this county and how it affects the most vulnerable clients that I have served. So today we're going to start off by talking a little bit more about Westmoreland County and the demographics there. I'll then move into some of the existing supports that we found, and then we'll talk about the barriers to transportation and the gaps in services that we discovered as well. And finally, we'll move into the future directions and where we're going as far as addressing those needs. So a little bit more about Westmoreland. Westmoreland is a relatively populated county. It's adjacent to Allegheny County that houses Pittsburgh, which is the largest municipality within our region. There's a little bit less racial diversity here than in other parts of the country, but it's representative of the state. Some of the areas within Westmoreland County are affluent, but about 20% of the county municipalities do fall below federal poverty rates. And you can see that there in the wonderful graph that my classmate Sarah made. Also, about 1/3 of the municipalities within the county are considered rural. So there is a pretty significant portion that is rural. And even of those who are not necessarily rural, about half of the municipalities have less than 2,500 constituents. As far as the existing programs, there are a number of assistance programs available. The first is the Senior Citizen Program. That's available to adults who are 65 and older. This is available for transportation pretty much anywhere that they need to go. They can use this to go to the doctor, to go grocery shopping, pick up prescriptions, and there's also no income qualifications. As far as the fare, that can range in between $2 and $11 each way. There's also the Medical Assistance Transportation Program. This is available to all medical assistance recipients, but this program, unfortunately, is only able to transport them to medical and behavioral health appointments. So this doesn't work for errand running or picking up prescriptions, anything like that. I also like to note that no children are permitted to use this service, despite the fact that there is a pretty significant portion of children within the region who are eligible for medical assistance. They're not able to use this program. ADA Paratransit Program is available for people with disabilities who live close to existing public transportation routes, but because of their disability cannot access these routes. It's available to use for any purpose, including errand running and appointments. Fares range anywhere from $4 to $12 each way. The Persons with Disability Programs is very similar to EDA, but it's only available for people between the ages of 18 and 64. It is also only available for trips in areas that are not currently serviced by existing public transit routes. Trips can be taken for any purpose, and the fares also range between $4 and $12 each way. Currently, there are a number of public bus routes that exist, and they are most concentrated within Jeanette and Greensburg. This is great because these are two of the most impoverished areas, but unfortunately, this does not reach the rural communities within the region. Also, one thing that we thought was very interesting, according to one comprehensive study that was completed by the Southwestern Pennsylvania Commission, it's known as the SPC, stakeholders found that transportation to Pittsburgh was identified as the main concern, while routes within rural areas were identified as less of a concern. And since this survey, which was conducted in 2016-2017, the majority of the newly developed public bus routes have been Greensburg to Pittsburgh. And this kind of led us to question, who are they conducting these needs assessments with? Who did they talk to? And we're going to discuss this a little bit further, but I just wanted to kind of broach that here. There are these shared ride systems that are available, and this might be a bit more of a viable solution within the rural and non-metropolitan areas with less population density. However, these shared ride systems are often not available. Taxis, Uber, Lyft, all of those kinds of services are unavailable in these rural areas. And while there are these publicly funded shared ride systems that are available, they do appear to have a number of issues. First and foremost, they only give you a 2-hour pickup window. So let's say you have an appointment at noon. They might say, okay, we'll be there anytime between 8:30 and 10:30. And you're given a 5-minute window. Where from the time that the van pulls in, you've got 5 minutes to get out there, even though you're given a 2-hour window, which, as you might guess, is kind of problematic for some people. It's also only available to certain groups of people. So you have to be considered disabled or have medical assistance or be above a certain age in order to use these. And this is also operating on the assumption that people understand and have pursued public assistance, which may or may not be the case. And also, except for one of these programs, people still have to pay fares, which may or may not be affordable to them. Especially if you're on a fixed income, it's very difficult to come up with that money. And for people within the region, it's been very difficult for them to find reliable, affordable, and timely transportation. So as far as where we're going to go from here, as a group, we had all kinds of ideas. We thought, oh, maybe we could propose some new bus lines. We looked at potentially applying for grants to help offset the fares of participants. We also looked at advocating for expanded shared ride systems within the area and looking at opening that up to the general public. However, we took a step back and we examined this from a social work perspective, in that we believe that people are the experts in their own lives. So we know that the vulnerable people in Westmoreland County need help with transportation, but to better understand their needs, we need to be asking them directly. There are several ways to do this. You can survey people from a specific program or area. For example, you can survey individuals who are current participants in medication-assisted treatment, MAT, at a local outpatient clinic, or you can survey individuals from a specific rural community. You can also attempt to do a wider community-based assessment to get a clearer picture of what constituents across Westmoreland County need. But it really boils down to, how do you actually do this? How do we get a hold of the people that we need to talk to? So our answer is networking. Networking is a great way to build those community connections that are needed to facilitate the specific or community-wide needs assessments that we need in order to develop solutions to these complex transportation issues. In January, I became involved with a group called Voices of Westmoreland, also known as VOW. And this is a bipartisan advocacy group working under Pennsylvania United. These types of grassroots organizations are found throughout the state, and they are a great place to start when it comes to networking. VOW then was able to connect me to the Community Foundation of Westmoreland County. In 2018, the Community Foundation of Westmoreland County had created what's called WESCO, which is a nonprofit coalition. Since its development in 2018, WESCO has grown to include over 134 nonprofits within the Westmoreland County area. From people diagnosed with opioid use disorders, to families living in poverty, to victims of abuse and neglect, WESCO serves some of the most vulnerable constituents within this region. And tapping into this sort of network would allow us to collect information from the diverse and vulnerable group of people so that we can conduct an inclusive needs assessment. And we aren't the only people working on transportation. Throughout this region, there are at least 2 other groups who are putting forth efforts right now to address transportation needs. One of them being the Community Foundation of Westmoreland County in WESCO, and the other being the Sierra Club. And they're doing this alongside the SBC, which I had mentioned before. And in February, WESCO hosted an event at the Westmoreland Art Museum that was called The Story of Transportation, a collective action project. And during this event, members of WESCO all came together to brainstorm ways to develop a collective media campaign that's focused on individuals and, most importantly, their stories. We shared the stories of the people that we serve and how they've been affected by the lack of transportation, and we drew pictures together to represent these stories. It was very artsy, it was very creative, it was a really great experience. Afterward, we talked about the solutions that we've seen our clients use, and we also discussed future directions. It was really helpful to have everybody come together. We're all stronger together. So the more people that become involved with these type of efforts, the better. Originally, this campaign was supposed to launch in April, but it looks like it's probably going to be delayed for the time being, as the Community Foundation is focusing their efforts on helping the public during this health crisis. But when this campaign does launch, it will use many of the strategies that we talked about during this collective action meeting. Some of those strategies include things like developing social media tools to spread awareness about the issue, and disseminating these tools through the WESCO network so that these nonprofit groups can advertise it on their Facebook pages. We also talked about developing a comprehensive transportation resource guide that we can distribute to the WESCO clients, so that clients do know and understand the different public and shared ride systems within the region. And we also talked about promoting success stories. So, talking to our clients who are successfully navigating the transportation system and having them share their solutions so that we can share them with other clients as well. As far as the work with the Sierra Club, Val was able to put me into contact with an individual named Randy Francisco, who is currently working on creating environmentally responsible solutions to transportation needs within the Allegheny Valley region, and which is a significant portion of Westmoreland County. The Sierra Club has been working with the SPC on this issue. Now, the SPC, who did that comprehensive study that I talked about earlier, they're getting ready to launch another needs assessment tool. And this is an assessment tool that's targeted at the Allegheny Valley. And they're hoping to get more information about the people who use public transit within that area. They're gaining information to assess where people go within the area to shop, to eat, to use public services. And then, using this information, they will create a virtual map that shows all the overlaps in responses and provide suggestions for various additional routes, transfer stations, etc., that might benefit people within the Allegheny Valley region. Together, Randy and I were able to develop a plan to disseminate this tool. Once we're allowed to meet with people again, we're going to go in and meet with the various staff at the nonprofits through WESCO within the Allegheny Valley region to train them to administer this online survey, the SPC's online survey, directly with the clients. And now, this is just the first phase of this project. There is certainly much more that needs to be done and will be done. Once we gain understanding of the areas most utilized by WESCO clients, the SPC is going to be the one to provide the additional funding to expand the existing transit routes within that area. And of course, I'm glad to be part of this, but this only addresses the needs of a small portion of Westmoreland County. But we can use these same techniques in other parts of the county as well. Really, anyone working in human services to address a certain need can use networking to identify potential allies and join existing efforts of others within that region. By using networking, you can build alliances and tap into resources that would otherwise not be available. Funding these types of projects can be difficult, but coordination among and between the different nonprofit groups will help reduce the overall cost. Many areas have grassroots advocacy groups, and if you don't have anything in your area, you may want to consider identifying allies within your existing network who would be interested in forming such a group. Advocacy is such an important part of the work that we do, and many professionals share the same value system as social workers. So I know that there are many of us who are compelled to act within our community. Val began in 2016 with a group of 5 individuals, and now it has over 250 dues-paying members, to the point where they were able to hire a full-time community organizer. So I cannot stress enough the importance of networking and building community connections to address community needs. I always like to say, think globally, act locally, and we can use those kinds of techniques when it comes to addressing the transportation needs of rural and medically underserved communities.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Courtney. I clicked ahead by accident.
Okay.
But we have our contact information at the end if anyone has any questions. So thank you to Courtney and her group. They've done wonderful work over this past year, and they continue to do this work despite our challenges of not being on campus and not being able to go to field sites this semester. So this has just been an awesome project that's really gotten our students more involved in their communities and within our community at Cal U. So as I mentioned before, what is kind of the future of these projects? And right now, it's unclear. We've been moved online throughout the summer, and we're not quite sure what will happen with field this summer. Some students are working via telehealth, but the hope is that in the fall, 2 or 3 of the groups, depending on their findings, may move further into the process, doing additional advocacy projects or getting involved in the community. Now, something interesting about our BWEP program is every semester we have new students coming and graduating. So we're always integrating new students, and then as students graduate, they're going into work in these communities. We also may have students collaborate with our HRSA OWEP program, which is another HRSA-funded grant program focused on opioid workforce expansion to incorporate the impacts on OUD and SUD throughout Southwestern Pennsylvania. So thank you so much for having us at this conference and inviting us to present virtually. Our contact information is here, and I just want to thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you.